Hello, everyone, and welcome to Accessibility News. Um, Tracy Delisle and myself will be here starting today, each week, to help provide information to anyone interested about accessibility, whether it be for your physical business or your website. There's a lot of misinformation, miscommunication, and we both, I'm sure, deal with businesses on a regular basis that are frustrated because something has happened that they weren't aware of or thought that they didn't need to be concerned about or whatnot. So, Tracy, would you introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, thank you. I'm with Certified Access Services, and we inspect and consult on accessibility. We go into business and identify any existing violations, create a very confidential report. By doing that, the state will honor them some benefits, helping them with, one, some financial monies that can help them bring the property into accessibility, as well as help deter those ADA lawsuits that are happening. And yeah, just especially today, kind of helping everybody as they're pivoting their business and moving things around, helping them comply.
Awesome. Thanks, Tracy. A little bit of background about myself. My name's Glenn Ingram. I own a couple of companies actually involved in accessibility online. I own one company called Web Search Pros and one called Web Alley. And what we do is try and help businesses with similar issues that Tracy was referring to, but with regards to online with their websites. One of 1,300 people are actually certified internationally in web accessibility. So we just want to always kind of talk to business owners, explain to them, A, what they're liable for, and then B, the benefits of doing this. Because when you look at a physical business or a website, people with disabilities are a community. And literally, if you are not accessible, if you do not provide access to them, then you're missing out on a fairly substantial percentage of the market in the country. Between 1 out of 4 and 1 out of 5 people in the US has one form of disability or another. So it's always good to know about what you need to do to protect yourself from liability, as well as what you can do to help increase your revenues as a business owner. So Tracy, what have you seen most recently with regards to the physical business in California?
Well, as you know, a CASP only inspects on structural. And what we're seeing lately is that a lot of people are adapting their businesses, but they're forgetting that they need to keep space in between tables, or that the path of travel needs to be unobstructed. And so we're constantly keeping them updated, and that a certain percentage of their tables, even if they're just kind of an outdoor place that does hair and they're inside, but they have their waiting area outside, they would still need to have an accessibility area for people that to arrive. And so we're just giving them information about that. But on your side of it, for websites, which we don't take care of, I've had a huge increase in calls, Glenn, asking questions. And of course, as you know, I try to refer them because I'm no techie by any means. But the questions that we get called on is why people can't buy this button or tray or things like that. So I'm wondering, from your side of it, what is the best way for me to answer those clients that call in when they need to know an answer right away, and then I send them on to you? Why doesn't that work?
Well, basically, in a nutshell, when anyone and most customers are looking for this, are looking for a quick fix, the simple answer is there isn't one. The only way to make a website work for everyone, regardless of ability or disability, is at the code level. So can we go in and fix some existing websites? Yes, but everything is time and money. So the best and least expensive way is to recreate a new one from them from the start. We have a lot of clients that you see, I'm sure, as well, and hear from, that want a quick fix. And so there are some companies out there that provide what's called an overlay, or you'll see these little bitty logos somewhere on the website that's in some form of a handicap logo that when they click on it, these things appear. Well, when you're looking at basically the essence of how a website's built, what goes into it from a coding standpoint, the perception that something like that could change everything in a website is kind of naive. And we're seeing a lot and I mean a lot of businesses that are being sued in 2021 and the past half of 2020 with one of these services on there. So not only are they not making the site accessible, they're basically providing a target for that website or that business's website to say they understand this. They know that the website has to be accessible. They tried to take a shortcut, and some of these serial litigants, I think, are going to start targeting companies more and more with those little shortcuts on there because they just don't work. We've had too many court cases. I shared an article here with Carl Grove, who's kind of like the godfather of accessibility, if you will, actually testifying as expert witness against one of the largest companies in the world that are doing those things. And Carl's been a huge voice over the past few years to explain and break it down in simple terms that if you put this code on your website and you have a picture behind you like the one on the wall there, that picture on a website has to paint a word picture. Well, A, is there really good enough artificial intelligence to paint a proper word picture for something that you're getting for free or 10 or 20 or $50 a month? And then B, how does it know if there's already a word picture on what's called an alt text on that picture? How is it going to tell if it's the right type of one or the wrong type of one? So unfortunately, businesses are looking for a shortcut, and there just isn't one.
Yeah, and it's definitely what I'm hearing from the law groups that I work with. They're telling me that these buttons are actually setting them up, or they'll put a disclaimer on their website, and just, I'm always trying to help them understand. And unfortunately, there seems to be these companies that are out there promising them the world. We guarantee. Well, what does a guarantee mean? And what exactly are they going to cover? And so there's a couple of companies that are doing this that we've said, listen, I know of several cases now that have had to be settled because of that. So it's just really hard. People are having a hard time with businesses as it is. We're trying to find them solutions that they can afford, which is why I kind of, send them to you. It's kind of a pay now, pay later. Unfortunately, if they choose to take that shortcut, they're more at risk. On the other hand, maybe simplifying their site, maybe a short-term solution to save them costs. Would that be something that you could say is maybe if they simplify their it's specifically like for restaurants, they have a menu, and right now it's ever changing, or they're trying to put out different information about it. If they're changing their menu all the time, is that where the cost comes in for them? Or if they just simplify it and just put like their name and their menu, that may be a more economical way to go, as long as it's compliant, than making lots and lots of pages.
Well, typically a restaurant doesn't have a lot of pages. Where a restaurant gets in trouble is by doing things the way they've always done them. And typically a restaurant is going to take their menu that came from the printer in the form of what's called a PDF. And PDFs are kind of a four-letter word in the accessibility industry because they don't work very well for blind people. So that's where we've seen a lot of restaurants being sued over, was either A, a PDF menu, or B, a third-party ordering delivery system that isn't accessible, which they're responsible for. So when it comes to this, I made a video and shared it back a couple of months ago when I asked, what is really inexpensive and what is really what you're getting for your business. Because again, you can have a bad website, you can have a poor presence online. If we've learned nothing in the last 12 months, right now and over the last year, it's been more important than ever for what you have online, because it's where people are having to go and are going to continue to go as much or more in the future to find your business. And again, B, if you open up that website to make it accessible for another 20 to 25% of the people in the state of California or across the country from a restaurant business, how does it take one or two more clients a month buying a meal from you to pay for this? So it's really, I think, more expensive not to do it right than it is to spend a little bit of money and invest in your business so you can open that up. I mean, there's over $2 billion worth of disposable income just in the state of California from people with disabilities. A little piece of that pays for a lot of what you need to do.
Right. Yeah. With websites, it certainly makes it easy for somebody who's doing this with the intent of making money off of this to just sit and search the web and find plenty of them. I'm sure that's the case. So I'm hoping that at some point, maybe that the government will identify this as an issue and provide some monies to help businesses towards that. I know right now I'm seeing for our side of it that there a lot of different jurisdictions through the state of California are looking to help, especially for the people that move to the outside into the areas of the public right of way, so that they're giving them grant monies to make it accessible, either that by building the decks in the parklet that are accessible, providing tables, barriers to meet accessibility, ramps, things like that. So we're seeing that more and more. I'll have more information on that. I know San Diego is on it. And already have the applications out. Santa Monica is one that is working on a program. It should be out any day. But there are a lot of different ones through the state of California. So we'll keep everybody update on that so that they can certainly apply for those grants to help them bring it into compliance. But in the future, Glenn, it'd be great if we can lobby towards getting some money and maybe find some grants that can help people with accessibility with the websites, because it is an issue. And unfortunately, web designers think that they have to follow that WCAG. Did I get the acronym right there?
Yeah.
And they think if they do that, that it's perfect. And the same with us is they'll have a city inspector come in and inspect their building brand new, but nobody comes in and inspects after you've moved in all your furniture. So unfortunately, things get missed, and then a brand new business can be sued. So in the same way as we're really out there to educate people and help them identify, deter these lawsuits, business is hard enough as it is, and give them some good support to succeed in their business without having to worry about the other things. And all of this is, people forget the other good side of all this is that when you bring your property into compliance, they will tell their friends, because, hey, this place is easy to get into. And then before you know it, you've increased your business just by them in their own social network, which is huge. People don't realize that. And say, hey, you need to go to this place. They're really about, making it accessible. The majority of the disabled people aren't out there suing. It's the few that are really making a lot of noise and costing businesses. Same thing with websites is, if you can get around on a website, they, disabled, blind and deaf, they all talk to each other as well. So, hey, you got to go to this place. They make it so easy for you. Guess what? They're going to get their friends to do it. And then you're in good shape. So, yeah.
Well, and just do some simple math. There's 3 million people in Orange County. If 20% of them have a disability, that's 600,000 potential business owners, patrons, clients that you can have. Back to what we were talking about with the money, one thing that I tell people about all the time, and most business owners, most CPAs, most attorneys aren't familiar with, is there is a California tax credit for anything you do with your business each year for accessibility of $125. There's a federal tax credit that starts after you spend $250 each year for the next $10,000. So that means everything that you spend each year in California, whether it be your physical business or your website or a combination thereof, up to $10,250, you get half of that back either from the state or from the federal government each year. So
Right.
At least they understood that for small businesses with less than 30 full-time employees or less than $1 million in revenue, that's what you have to be to qualify for this. This is a small business credit, but that definitely is helpful. So when you look at what you're spending to make your restaurant more accessible, what you're spending to make your website more accessible, if you're getting half of that paid for you by the government in the form of a tax credit, which is a lot more than a tax deduction, it really makes it a lot more palatable to do the right thing and expand your customer base.
Absolutely. We definitely tell all of our clients about those 2 credits, and people don't realize that you get it year after year. It's a great thing. And now if you have a plan, one of the questions we always get is, do I have to fix everything at once? On our side of it, we're really about reducing your risk. And so we're here to make you create a plan not to put you in debt over this. So if you could create a long-term plan and show that you are really putting in effort to bring your property into full accessibility, then that's going to make your case, if someone were to file, a lot better. It's going to help you when you're putting out your social media that's what you're doing. They love to see things like that. So having the money year after year and planning, I tell people if they've got a big construction project that's going to cost you, plan half of it at the end of the year, plan the other half at the beginning of the year, and for one project, take that into account that you're in a way kind of double dipping and getting that credit for the full credit both of those years. So that's one way to strategize the finances, and we help them take a look at that.
Well, get in touch with your tax professional, because let's say you need to do something right now. The federal tax credit can go backwards 1 year or carried forward up to 20. So let's say you only are going to owe $2,000 worth of federal taxes this year, but you owed you paid $3,000 in last year. You can get all of that money taken care of from what you're doing this year and keep moving forward. So there's a lot of ways to be creative with using these tax credits to help protect you.
Yeah, absolutely. I often will say, after you look at our reports, to sit down with your tax professional and your legal, and just say, what is the best plan for us, and we participate in that to help them make the best decisions they can proactively. It's so hard after someone has been hit. So if we're proactive and we're moving towards doing things right, then you don't have to worry about all of that other stuff. And that's really the great thing. And it's not always doom and gloom. It's like, this is the way to move forward. And this is the way, you've got to keep it accessible, because you're definitely driving business these days, because we have all of these restrictions. And now that we're starting to open up, you can bet that other people are paying attention too. So let's do it right out of the gate. And allow the professionals in to help you make the decisions, and don't leave money on the table.
Well, and back to a comment you made before about the communities within, whether it be the blind community, the deaf community, the communities that are in a wheelchair, stuff like this. They do appreciate this. I'm involved in some of these communities on Clubhouse, and when you advocate for them, they appreciate it so much, because we take so much for granted in our everyday life that don't understand what they have to go through when you have cerebral palsy, when you have muscular dystrophy, just to do the things that we do without even thinking about it. So when you can advocate for them as a business, and you can share that, whether it be on your social media or whatnot, I think you'd be surprised, most business owners would, as far as how much business they'll start getting from this community that has a lot of money to spend with different businesses. So it's definitely something that I think would give you a return on your investment if you look at it like that versus an expense.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's and the codes are changing. We should kind of put that out there, that we have a code cycle every couple of years for accessibility, and the ones that went into effect January actually start getting confirmed by all the jurisdictions, and they put them out by July. So there are some new ones on our side of it. The truncated domes have some definite changes. Those are those bumpy things, for people that don't know that term. I call them ankle breakers, but I understand and respect the need for them. And there's a lot of people that want to do lots of different colors. Yellow in California is really what it needs to be. They also love to buy them on Amazon or from some different places and products, and they find that those aren't really accessible in California. I was born in California, born and raised, so I can say that we're crazy California. And crazy California has some pretty crazy rules. And so you may be able to use it in another state, but in crazy California, we have it very specific of what you need to have, and it's probably more strict. So if you're buying it online, even if it says that it's state approved, it may not be. Again, we help people through that process. I heard from somebody who was a quadriplegic the other day, and they were saying their frustration with those truncated domes, and I didn't even think about this, was the vibration. So when we feel a vibration, it kind of is spread throughout our body. But for them, everything rattles in their head. So going across those, they need to have the ones where their wheels fit through those areas. And I never thought about that. I only, when I'm thinking about truncated domes, think about the blind, because they need to. Well, same thing. I didn't realize that the correct truncated domes have directionals. So when we're out there talking to businesses, we're giving them a better sense of why it's important. And a lot of times people go, I never thought of that, or I never thought of where I put the table would make them feel. I was just thinking I'm going to put it over there because it might be easier for them to get there, but it might make them feel like they're in a corner. We don't want to discriminate at all. And so once people realize, the majority of businesses, Glenn, they want to comply.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't know what the codes are, which is why we cross-reference state, federal, local, and then sometimes it's industry specific. And we will look at that and say, hey, we've really got to educate these people about why. And then once they realize, they're like, absolutely, let's get this changed. Especially if it's, I need you to just move this over here, and you're going to help, all of these different disabled people get through that without a barrier. That's the name of the game. For you, it's the barrier of not being able to access all of the information that anyone else can.
Well, and I'm sorry.
No, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, and that's the one thing that is kind of frustrating for me from my side, from the digital side, is so many businesses, and you're familiar with this as well because we talk about these because they contact you periodically. They're saying, my developer says I'm accessible. My person I work with says this is taken care of. And it's really a deep, I guess, knowledge or a deep understanding of this to jump on the website and, within 10 seconds say, no, you're not accessible. We're contacted probably a few times a month, if not every week, to say, can you come testify for us and prove that our site's accessible? And I jump on their website for 15, 20 seconds, and I tell them, I'm happy to testify, but I have to testify to your site's not accessible because you have problem A, B, C, or D.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest problem. Go ahead.
If they want to check, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but even if you want to check on your own web developer, aren't there all these little free things that you can run and will tell you, listen, it is wrong? And is that the case that those are good or they're not good?
They're good just to give you a glimpse. You have about 5 different tools out there that specialize in about like 10 to 15% of accessibility. So at least you can see that you have hard errors by running one of these texts. One of them is called WebAIM. So if you just Google WebAIM, website tester, you can put a URL in there, and it has 6 different components. The first 2 are the ones that you definitely know that you have hard errors on your website. And there's other ones like this that'll show you part of them. The worst part is if a developer can get some of those little things done so you don't see anything in red on some of these different testing tools, then they have the misperception that it is accessible, but they've never tested it as someone that's blind would test it, or if someone with MS or MD and can't use a mouse to test it. That's the only way to really know if it's accessible. Is best case scenario is to have somebody with a disability test it. Second best is have somebody that understands it, how to test it. But when you can literally, again, within 15, 10, 20 seconds, be able to know if it's accessible, that's where you run into problems, because you have that false sense of security that, oh, I'm okay because my guy said it. I'm okay because my gal said it. Well, it's always good for this to kind of be like going to the doctors to ask for a second opinion from time to time. Take a look at something. And then I think one of the biggest things I want to kind of share was what has changed ever since the Domino's decision of a year and a half ago with the federal court is before, like you mentioned, restaurants were being sued heavily. The year prior to that, in 2018, they were hotels. The biggest change that we've seen in the last 16, 17 months is all bets are off. We're seeing every type of business sued. You're seeing kind of a plaintiff attorney combination, maybe going after microbreweries, maybe going after doctors, maybe going after e-commerce or places that are selling things online. So, I mean, the amount of different types of businesses are being sued. Well, shoot, we had the month before that, so 17 months ago was the first time one law firm sued another law firm. And I've been waiting for this, talking to attorneys to say, just wait till you win a case and you upset an opposing counsel. They're going to find someone that has a disability, and now they're going to sue you for your website.
Right.
So there's really no one that's safe anymore. A mom's blog was sued a year ago in April. I mean, come on, a mom's blog.
Right. Right. Agree. You know, so what I say to people is if you've got a website person and developer, we're not looking to break up your relationship with them, but if they're telling you that it's 100% and you run them one of those and you find one error, all it takes is one error to make that mistake. So like you said, a second opinion on what really needs to be done is the time to talk to somebody like you that knows what they're talking about. And it's nothing wrong with their web developer. It's just that I don't think that they've been taught correctly, or like you said, and I know just enough to get people in trouble, which is why I don't give any advice on websites, and you know that. So I just tell them, you better get a second opinion, and if you run one of those things and you find one that's not compliant, the laws are the laws. It's not it's not even gray in some of them. This is the way it needs to be.
So what about the marriage, and what have you seen with the marriage over the last 2 years about online to offline and offline to online and combining these? You've mentioned before about looking at pictures of a restaurant online and observing obstacles or barriers. Can you speak to that a little bit?
So are you talking about in restaurant types?
Yeah, so restaurant types, they'll see photos of a restaurant and they'll see that the bar isn't accessible. They'll see that this isn't accessible. So they're looking online and suing for physical barriers offline. And then maybe they go and see that there's a physical barrier because they see someone, they sue them for their physical business. And then they include their website because they tested their website as well, how they're marrying the two different industries.
This is a common thing that happens. So they will go on and search for a barrier, because people don't realize they don't need to visit a business in order to identify a barrier or go there. All they have to do is, if they identify it online, say, I wanted to go there, but I couldn't because they have a barrier that exists which would have stopped. So a lot of times they'll use Google Earth and they'll identify that there's a parking issue and they're not going to be able to get around that barrier. And now they're on the website, and why they're there? Well, is there an accessibility issue on their website? So we will see them file the website and then come right behind and file the on-site, or the opposite. But we are seeing kind of the double up of, oh, and by the way, this isn't as well. And those cases can settle for a much higher price by doing that. We've seen them settle because, people get mad and they say, I want to go to court. But remember, you got to give a retainer for the lawyer and you've got to, go to court. And if the barrier exists, it's hard to get around that if it exists. I mean, what the judge is, he's going to base it on the law. And if the other side can show here it is, then there it is.
Well, but back to something you mentioned earlier about being discrimination or not discriminating. These are discrimination suits. So that means not only if you lose are you liable to the plaintiff, you're also liable for their attorney fees. So we all know attorney fees aren't cheap. So if you go to trial, typically to go to any type of 1 to 2 day trial, you're looking at $15,000 to $30,000 for your attorney. Guess what? Now you're looking for that for their attorney plus their damages. That's why we're seeing a lot of cases settle for $8,000, $12,000 online. I don't know what you're seeing over there for your aspect, but because they know how long it's going to take for one of these trials to process and what their end all expense is going to be if they go to trial and lose.
Yeah, one of our clients actually told us that they were so angry that it was the third time that they had been sued. And they went to somebody, to a law firm and said, I want to go to trial on this. And the law firm said, okay, we need a $50,000 retainer. Whoa, wait a minute. I didn't know it was going to cost. And I thought if we won, maybe we could get the money from the other side, but that's not how it works. So I understand that they're angry. And the reason that you hear people getting sued multiple times is because typically a serial litigant will go in and identify just a couple of things. And then the next group, I don't have any proof that they talk to each other, but it sure feels like it sometimes. The next group comes in and they pick a few more things. that's the value of a CASP inspection, is that we're going to identify all of them. And that report, again, is confidential. So now you can look and say, okay, what are all the things that people can visually see? And I encourage them to put pictures up that show they're compliant on their websites and social media. You know, we've got all these people taking these selfies and doing things like that. Well, they're going to post that stuff up on social media. And if they can post it up and you're showing an accessible table, or, you know, when you've got your favorite client that comes in and they're in a wheelchair, take a selfie with them, or do something like that, because you're really then inviting in that you do have, you know, some accessibility features in your restaurant. Again, growing your business by inviting those in. They're not all bad, but we need to make you aware of the bad because they're very loud and it's very costly for businesses. On the other hand, listen, making it easy for somebody to come into your business, it's just going to grow your business. And so let's look at it in a positive way, especially when we're being proactive. Make it easy for somebody. Make it easy, they'll come.
Well, and the more you can cover your backside, kind of like you mentioned earlier, sometimes people are using Google Earth to look at the painting, the parking structures and stuff like that. So if you have a Google Earth that you can't control, you can always get that paint taken care of, take a photograph of that, upload that to your Google map, what's called Google My Business, and then guess what? Google stamps when this was up there. So should you have a complaint coming down later, you can simply tell your attorney to share with that. Say, look at this. As of this date, Google has a picture of a current photo of our parking instructions of this or that, and then they can contact the attorney. In my experience, and share with me from yours, the most common reason that we're seeing lawsuits on the digital side go away is someone was sued that was accessible, had their ducks in a row, and was able to have their attorney contact the plaintiff attorney to say, what obstacle are you talking about? This is what was done properly. Because sometimes some of these combinations are sending a lot of lawsuits out, and they're going to make some mistakes and sue some people that truly don't have obstacles.
Right. Absolutely. That happens often. So we created a validation letter. Most of the time, we encourage our clients to go through a law firm and put the contract in the law firm's name so that they have that attorney-client privilege. And then if they are in a lawsuit, we'll provide them what's called a validation report. It only identifies the items within within the lawsuit. And we just simply say whether it's valid or not valid. I would say a good 75% of the time, we can find at least one of them that had either an alternative path that was compliant. Because remember, they're just identifying one. Well, yeah, that one probably is. That path is not compliant. But you forgot to take a picture or notice that there was a directional sign that sent you to the other direction to show you the compliant path. Or we identified that it existed, and now really all they needed to do was put up a directional sign. So we're really going onto the property and looking for ways for them to be compliant without having to spend a lot of money. That's our goal. I really talk to all of our inspectors to say, listen, you know, pretend this is your money, and you're going to find a way to become compliant without having to spend money or the least amount of money. And if you do that, what we do is put a paragraph in our recommendations to say, yeah, you know, 1 through 6 is not compliant, but if you just move this, it changes everything, and it may cure all of those. So sometimes the reports are, you know, hundreds of pages and people get freaked out, but they have to read those recommendations so that they realize if they just do this one, it really cures all of the others. And so we kind of bring them back down and say, hey, it's not as bad as you thought, and help them through that process. And you know, we're always out there trying to find new products that they can purchase and things like that. We don't align ourselves with any contractors. We can give them references on if, you know, one of our clients had a good experience. The reason we don't is we're not trying to find work for anyone. We're trying to find so that business owner doesn't have work. But if somebody has an amazing experience with a contractor, I'll share that. But I just give them a phone number and let it move on. I don't want any of our inspectors through the state to think that we are aligning ourselves with a contractor by any means to find them work. I
No,
want to
and
find them no work.
I want to reiterate one thing you said there was, for anyone, if you have a question, if you contact an inspector like Tracy's business, if you contact us, we are not in relationship with any of these plaintiffs, these plaintiff attorneys and stuff and things of that nature. So
No.
we're not here to help identify that, yes, this company has a barrier, this company has a problem. We're here to just give you information and help point you in the right direction. Because as much as, well, the reality is I would love to see no one being sued about these. And as soon as I say that, I'm going to tell you that unfortunately, the only way a lot of people are going to understand to fix it or to get motivated to do it is by either A, they were sued, or a friend being sued. So I hate the tool or the mechanism, but keep in mind, again, like I said, between 20 and 25% of the people in America have a disability. So we owe it to everyone as a business owner to make sure that they have access to it. You know, we wouldn't dream of excluding a race. We wouldn't dream of excluding a gender, but unknowingly, a lot of times we exclude people because of a disability they may have. So I think, like you're right, I think most of the time it's just uneducation, not having the knowledge of knowing what they need to do, and the benefits of doing so, I think, far outweigh the negatives of not doing so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And remember, most people really, we get it. Most businesses by no means mean to discriminate or do something intentionally to avoid having a customer. People want customers. And so I'm often talking to the disabled people and say, just help educate them on what they can do to make it easier. I would love that these lawsuits didn't happen and that we're out there just kind of promoting how they can increase their business by, making it friendly to them, not in a discriminating way, but things that makes it easy. Bring in different types of disabled people and have them move around, and I loved doing that, as you know, before the pandemic hit. That I would go out and do a lot of educational community outreach, just how to talk to them and how they want to be talked to, and how to treat them, and about service animals and what it is and what it isn't. And I love the teaching aspect of it. Right now, I feel very reactive because there are so many suits that I'm finding myself kind of, like a firewoman. I'm trying to put out the fires and help them come back and realize that they're going to be able to figure this out and do it. It is going to cost them. But I would much prefer that we could, do away with all these lawsuits and get out there and educate the public on different things more positively.
Amen. Amen. So for everyone that's watching this or seeing a replay, Tracy and I are going to start doing this every week. We're going to bring on other experts, whether they be attorneys, people with disabilities. We just really want to help inform business owners so that they can help, A, protect themselves, and B, expand their businesses. Because I think it's important for all of us. 2020 in the past year has been hard enough on businesses. They don't need other obstacles. They don't need their own barriers, if you will, to success. So if we can help them remove some of their barriers that are barriers for other people, they can bring in more clients. So if anyone that's watching this has any experience with this, if they have a disability, please reach out to one of us via Facebook, via LinkedIn, because we're really going to do this. We really want to bring on people that have experiences, have knowledge, have specialties. You may know this much, or a lot about this much of it, but it's going to take us a while to really comfort or circle this entire sphere of inference or information. Sorry, my tongue does not want to work today. So yeah, please, feel free to share information with us, contact us, bring us questions, bring us people that can help. Let's build this community, I guess, a little bit more, and so that everyone has access to all the information, all the restaurants, all the businesses, because this isn't going away. It's only going to get more complicated and more complex as we move forward. One thing, Tracy, if you wouldn't mind sharing with everyone, the referral that you brought to us a couple of weeks ago, where someone in a wheelchair is actually suing a hotel for not having enough, air quotes, enough description of a handicapped room to know if they can come in with this. Once we start doing that, we're going to start seeing that in other industries. What do you think about that?
I think that I'm starting to see that a lot, especially in the hotel industry. There are 3 different types of accessibility rooms in a hotel, which people don't realize. There's communication rooms where they have to have strobe lights or doorbells, different features like that. TTY, they need to be able to get into that. And then there's other types of rooms where they need roll-in showers or sit-in tubs where they can transfer into tubs. So there's several different types. And what they're looking for now is not that you're just stating on your site that you have an accessibility room, that you're describing each. And they want to know where they are. So they're looking for dispersion. Did they disperse these rooms appropriately? And is that described on there? Is it an accessibility room with a view? Is it, so they're looking for all of these descriptions, and unfortunately, it's getting them in trouble. You can't just say anymore that you have an ADA room, which is what a lot of them did. On your side of it, we're seeing that people are stating that they can't make the reservations. That's a biggie. Of course, again, we don't take care of that, but when they get them for that, and now they're saying, well, do we have the proper accessibility rooms? And so we're getting called to say, 1, do we have them in the right place? 2, do we have all the different types we're supposed to have? And I will tell you that I have not found somebody that has 100% correct. So again, it's more about the education. You can tell people tried with what they thought was right, especially the big corporate ones. They usually have a team in another state. Again, we're crazy in California, so the laws and codes are a little bit different here. We want to make sure that they all, they all comply and they understand why and where. And if they go to remodel, to definitely consult with a cast person to make sure that when you're building your counters and you're looking at the space design, that they've at least got the eyes on it to know that when you have your contractors putting it in, save money. It's so much easier for us to erase it on paper than it is for us to come in and say, you need to move that wall 2 inches. Or we see this a lot with plans. The architect will give the space in the walls, but they forget that there's going to be finished tile on top of it. Well, there's always design changes. They'll say, I used to like that tile, but now with the finish, I don't really like that tile, and it's thicker. Well, now you've decreased that space. We see that a lot in restrooms. So, at one point, probably at the drywall, it was compliant. But now if you do, really thick tile on each side, you've really narrowed that space. Toilet to be off, your sink's going to be off. Again, if I can erase that on paper and fix that on paper, you've saved thousands of dollars, thousands, because you don't want to say, and it's brand new, you're not going to get final unless you tear that out. And I don't like to give that news. I'd rather bring my eraser.
100% with anything with accessibility. For anyone that's watching this, it's always less expensive to design and plan for accessibility from the beginning, whether it be digital or physical, than it is afterwards. Keep in mind, you always have the adage when you're a business owner, we never have enough time to do it right. There's always enough time to do it over, but it always costs more to do it over.
Always. And same thing for you. If somebody spends a lot and builds their site out and then they get sued, and now they've got to pay to get it done right. Wow, they are, they've had to spend some money. We get it. We do get it. My heart goes out to these people that just didn't know. Again, I loved going out and educating people before you start your construction project. Let's make sure. It'll save you. I promise. We're going to find something that's going to save you thousands. So yes, talk to us first. Calling us and asking us a question, I can put quick eyes on it and know whether you need to have us or not. And quite honestly, I've seen plans before and said, you know what? Not yet. You don't need us yet. Mm-hmm. But you're going to need us at some point when you finish. That's what you need, because everything that we see on the plans, as long as your contractor puts things in, don't waste your money on us at this point. But more 9 times out of 10, I would say that we see something right away. And then the client's grateful. And I like those kind of clients that are grateful, like, oh boy, that would have really cost us money down the road.
Yeah.
So yeah, please call and ask questions. I like when the phone rings and we're answering those type of questions all day. I answer well into the evenings sometimes, because that's when a lot of times business owners have time, is after the day's work. I'm okay with that.
Amen. Yeah, the CBD industry has really been getting hit hard over the last year, and it's very saddening when I speak with a client that contacted us in December. They started their business in April of 2020. Not the best time to start a business for anyone. We were the third person they were talking to because they hired someone to build a website. It was a website, but it wasn't very attractive. They hired someone else to build one that was more aesthetically pleasing, and neither one of them were accessible. And then they were sued, and then they were talking to us. So can you imagine paying for 3 websites in the first 9 months you're in business?
No, I mean, that's, and then during a pandemic, if it happens during that, it's so hard to be in business. And so let's make it easier for them and help them through that before. That's really the key. If I talk to any, business attorneys, and so if there's anything they stress is, reach out to the professionals and talk to them before you start something. Investigate it, really know, and don't spend the money until you know in all aspects of business. Make sure that you are not just for accessibility, but there's a lot of other areas that you want to be reaching out to the professionals. Make sure that you're covered. There's nobody that's going to protect your business like you will. People or professionals are out there to look at something very specific. That's the same thing with a city inspector. They're coming out to look at your plumbing, your electrical, your structural. They don't even if they see something that's not in their arena, if you've got somebody coming out for plumbing and he knows something, 9 times out of 10, he's not going to tell you, because he's there for a specific reason. He's not there to tell you about other parts of your business. It's an unfortunate fact that we know happens. So you've got to make sure that you are really diligent about protecting your business, and that you're aligning yourself with professionals that care about you protecting your business. That's just the way it is.
Can you touch on real briefly? I know we've heard this a lot, that businesses have the misperception of when someone from the city comes out to inspect for opening a business for construction, that they think that covers them with regards to accessibility and ADA. Can you touch on that briefly, Tracy?
Yeah, that's a great point. And that is a misconception that we hear all the time. Like I said, when an inspector is called out to you, they're really there for a very specific inspection. They are looking at plumbing. The plumbing guy doesn't check the structural. The structural guy doesn't check the plumbing. So when they're looking at those items, they are specifically looking what's on their sheet. So there's nobody that goes in and checks on accessibility. And especially there's nobody coming in after you move your furniture in. So a lot of things get missed. Counters get missed. Or they'll say, I didn't get my sign up, but I have my signs ordered. Then before you know it, you've got signs that are incorrectly installed, that they don't meet the current standards. But all the inspector wrote said they would have the signs installed. They don't need to come back and inspect on that. They don't have a sign inspector. So all of those items get missed, which is why you want to kind of get your business certified at the end and take advantage of all of the tax credits and deductions. And, when you're doing that and making sure that when you're opening the doors to your new business or just remodeled business, you're good right out of the gate. But yeah, that and grandfathering is the other big one we always see is, oh, my business is grandfathered. Well, and I tell people there's no grandmother, there's no grandfather, there's no aunts and uncles. Unfortunately, that is a misconception, because people think that let me explain. Some codes, when they change, need to be done right away. Like if you have this violation, you should fix right away. Other codes need to be triggered. So if you do something, it could trigger it. Well, you need to know that. So even after we do inspections, we'll send our clients and say, this is a new code, and if you make any alterations, keep this in your budget, because this is going to have to be fixed. On the other hand, if it's something they need to change right away, I'd say as soon as you have the money to do this, you need to do this on your property. So we don't really go away. We continue with our clients and keep those misconceptions that they can find on, because everybody thinks that Google is perfect, and whoever posted it up knows what they're talking about, but we see a lot of bad information on there. So asking an actual professional who will look at your business will identify if something is the so-called grandfathering. What they're really talking about is it hasn't been triggered. But there are a lot of codes that really a business owner's obligation is to keep up on that. And so that's what gets them in most trouble.
So if you've got nothing from today, as our little introduction, I guess, if you would, to accessibility and what Tracy and I are going to be going over week after week with other experts, is that owning a business is getting more complicated, not less. And we're here to try and help bring people to communicate, to inform, to educate business owners so that they can make the best decision moving forward. Because we all have decisions to make. The main reason I want to talk to people from a digital aspect is I want them to know what's going on, because inevitably every week we're contacted by talking to businesses that have been sued for something they were unaware of. So if they knew about it and made the choice not to do it, well, then shame on them. But right now, I think it's kind of shame on us, shame on the government, shame on the people who have not communicated enough. So that's what we're really here for. We want to share information with everybody. We want you to know just what your responsibilities are, your liabilities are, and your benefits. So we're going to be here every Friday at the same time. Please feel free to join. Please share this information with anyone that you know that would have interest in it, would be happy to have some information. I hope our goal is just to help educate, inform, and just bring information to people so that they can, again, make informed decisions. We're just a few moments left. Tracy, is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Just want to really encourage people to reach out and ask questions and let us, guide you at least into the right direction to see if you're accessible or not before the trouble finds you. And we're just really a phone call away, an email away, to really help you. And that's what I really want to stress, is that we're here to help the business. In no way, shape, or form will I ever work with or communicate with the people that go around harming business. Very pro-business. I'm pro-disabled, and I want everyone to succeed and be happy and not have to worry about this stuff.
So you should see, wherever you're watching this, you'll see a link to Tracy's profile on LinkedIn. You'll see a link to mine on our profiles. You'll see links to our website. So anyone who has questions, please feel free to reach out. Again, we're here to try and help the community as a whole do better, get better, and be there for everyone else. So thank you, everyone that watched this. Anyone that's watching it in replay, again, we'll be back again next Friday. Please bring some questions.
Keep safe, everyone. Thank you.